Hi, my name's Allan Laurie and I want to welcome you all to our property today in the Waimate district in South Canterbury. Today I want to take you over the growing and marketing of cypress as a diverse species within New Zealand. We're going to look at the growing of the tree, the management of it a little bit, but really focusing on utilisation. The sawmilling elements, we're going to take you over our small sawmill operation here in Waimate, and we're going to look at how we're grading and marketing the timber. The idea, of course, is just to inform you about the species and to create opportunities for you to have a think about how you might get involved in growing this wonderful diverse species, which we generally call cypress, but in this case today we're going to focus on macrocarpa. This small stand was planted at 1100 stems per hectare, which equates to 3 metres by 3 metre spacings. When we undertook the first thinning, we just removed really the smaller and unthrifty trees, and they're currently sitting at around about 600 stems per hectare. The intention is this winter we'll be going through and thinning out approximately a third of the remaining trees. And the idea is that those thinnings will be removed for firewood, because that's another wonderful thing about cypress. It can be utilised for firewood, it's very good burning. And the objective there is to finish up with a final crop of around about 350 to 400 stems per hectare. But in reality we're going to progressively thin from here on, and eventually, and I would say within 5 years, we'll actually be removing trees for small saw logs. Here again is another opportunity for growing cypress at scale and being able to extract trees right from an early age for utilisation for sawing and so forth. So this is almost an ideal tree. It has good form, generally it's nice and straight. You can see that the early pruning we did, those branch scars are now what we call occluded or grown over. The crown is a little bit heavier than we'd prefer, but this is a little bit of an edge tree effect in this case. But the objective again is to try and keep the branch size down in the upper crown, as well as having a nice clean pruned stem. There's variations around what people think we should be pruning to in terms of height, but as a general principle we would say we should be pruning to 5 to 6 metres, giving us plenty of opportunity and around the final marketing of that clearwood log. And we call it a clearwood log because once we remove the branches, then obviously the timber that grows outside that is clear wood. Behind me we can see a tree that is perhaps symptomatic of what we sometimes see in macrocarpa, and that can be what we call canker. But this tree is destined for removal this winter. And so once we've undertaken that thinning, we'll be removing any trees that we feel are less than satisfactory for final crop. So we finish up with good, well-formed trees for our final crop, and those eventually that will be milled for timber. So this is a tree I've cut down to demonstrate a 18-year-old tree. So when we've undertaken our pruning, we can see on here where I've taken a branch off, and the timber growing outside that cut is called clear wood because obviously it has no knots, and that's the timber that has the premium in the market for the cypress species. You can see that here we have heartwood and here we have sapwood. Again, it's the hardwood that we're looking for in growing cypresses, and that's why we need this tree to be mature to maximise the volume of the higher value heartwood. So here we are in our timber yard, firstly looking at our log stockpile. These logs we sourced from South Otago, and they are generally, as you can see, some of them are quite small, but that's good. For a 45-year-old tree, we're getting very good select tight knot timber from these logs. So when we receive these logs, we generally try to sort them by grade. So we're looking for smaller logs and larger logs in separate piles, and we're looking sometimes for putting some lengths in separate piles. So they're received here into the yard, and we do a mini sort, what we call a mini sort, for the sort of timber runs that we're expecting to do. And as the portable sawmilling operation here unfolds, our sawmiller will pick up the logs and take them to the sawmill for the grade C that we've asked them to cut for that day. So now we've moved from receiving the logs, we're undertaking our sawmilling with our portable sawmilling operation, our wood miser sawmill. We're bringing the timber over and starting to sort. So now I'd like to introduce you to Aaron, our lumber manager, who will explain how we go about grading and sorting the timber for sale.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm the day-to-day operations manager of this timber yard. Our end uses with the timber with the minor species of Macrocarpa can be described as in three main end uses: clear grade, structural appearance grade, and then our rough, merchant, sleeper, fall down grade. The three grades have very distinct differences, and they're all based on New Zealand grading standards for radiata pine. And here is an example of our clear grade lumber milled from pruned logs. As you will see, it is pruned timber with no defects, no knots, with high concentration of heartwood. Our clear grade timber comes from well managed pruned plantation trees, providing lots of heartwood, which is the main element of wood that you want for clear grades, with no defects in it at all. And our dressing grade standard grades come from small branch, well tended plantation trees, tight knot, with no bark encasement, where the branches are all live wood. It is important to note that with this grade we do allow a little bit of black knot, but that never exceeds the diameter of a fingernail.
This is an example of one of our decks that's just been recently put down. It's a good example of our dressing grade or standard grade lumber, sometimes called dressing grade, sometimes called standard grade. One of the good features of Cypress is its durability. So here it has a very good place in a deck such as you see here. We always select the timber to make sure the knots are select tight knots, so in other words they're not bark encased. And we would expect this deck to last 25 years plus in this environment. You can see also that this customer's made up some planter boxes, and here again is another opportunity. We always caution against the use of Cypress in soil because it is not ground durable. But it does make a lovely feature planter box where you could put items inside there, and that'll last for a long, long time.
Our third and final grade is our merchant sleeper grade, and this generally comes from rougher trees, big branches, untended, trees that have come from hedging situations, and those products end up for garden sleepers, garage shed, wall claddings, and all those end-use type materials. And here we have an example of our merchant grade sleeper grade timber, with high concentration of large diameter bark encasement knots from rougher trees that have not been well tended. If we were to talk about values of the Macrocarpa, the live knot dressing grade standard grade is the medium price grade. The lower grade merchant grade timber, that is at least half the value, and the prune grades are at least double the value of the dressing grade quantities.
Okay, well that's a very brief overview of our Cypress sawmilling and processing business. I'd encourage people to get out there and plant these cypresses and get involved in this industry. It's trades at much higher values than our mainline species, and there's plenty of markets out there. We see growth within our domestic markets in New Zealand, and there's certainly very strong demand for cypresses internationally, particularly in China, where I'm fielding lots of inquiries. So get out there and plant those trees and get involved in this industry. It's a wonderful place to be.